All right, it is good to be back with you again. Very soon, it seems. Don't put a video up for, like a lifetime, and then all of a sudden I'm inspired and I'm putting up all of these videos. Well, I guess maybe just doing a second in a few days is not really a bunch of videos, so I guess I overstated it. Anyway, just a couple of public service announcements, if we could, before we get started. I try to keep this channel as family-friendly as possible, just to be honest with you. It's just kind of a conviction of mine. Maybe I've had a slip up here or there, maybe in the early days, but we try to keep it pretty clean. So some of the content, just to give you a little bit of a warning, is going to be edited and or censored, if you will, just to kind of remove some of the language in case, the kids are in the room or something like that. We just, want to kind of keep it as classy as we can, even though we're dealing with not really a very classy subject. So that's kind of interesting. It's kind of a contradiction, I guess, but be that as it may, which is one of my favorite phrases, we are going to censor some of the language so it does not come across very crass. My second public service announcement, I guess it's kind of a public service announcement, is that the title of the video, or the subject matter of the video, is Jakey Lee wrong, or was he wrong, or he is wrong? What he said about Yngwie Malmsteen is, because I guess I'm a big Yngwie apologist, it's the primary title of the video. Secondarily, the title, if there's a subtitle or a byline, if you will, it's going to be How to Lose a Ton of Subscribers with One Video, because I'm probably going to say some things about Jakey Lee that some of you aren't going to like because you're just huge Jakey Lee fans, which I'm a huge Jakey Lee fan. I just kind of want to address the issue because it doesn't really seem like necessarily anyone else has, and I guess that probably just makes me stupid. All right, so I guess we're just going to get right into this, and we are going to use some of the audio. I hope that we are not infringing on anyone's intellectual property. It is not our intention to infringe upon. We will just be offering commentary on an interview, and if that's a problem, please someone let me know. Okay, so let's just get on with it and just see how much we have to censor here. We'll just play little snippets and kind of talk about it.
So what is your beef with Yngwie?
Oh, he's a dick. I mean, that's my main problem with him. Is he's an arrogant asshole, and I can only assume that if when you're younger you're that arrogant and that big of a dick that you really never change.
All right. Well, wasn't that colorful and wasn't that just absolutely precious? So apparently, Jake has an issue with Mr. Malmsteen because he thinks he's arrogant, and he had a couple of choice words for him, which, we kind of censored them only because, again, we want this to be family-friendly. But there's something that he said about Yngwie, and I don't know if you caught the first word, even though that it was censored, something that I did not know about Yngwie. He was a private investigator. You might look that up. Then, anyway, he says that, he's an arrogant whatever. I don't think anybody can really come to the defense of Yngwie on this. I mean, obviously, over the decades and over the years, he's said some pretty outrageous and outlandish things. I believe even just a couple of years ago, he said that he saved Fender guitar. I don't know if that's true. To be honest with you, I never really had an interest in buying a Strat until I started listening to Yngwie because I thought Strats for like country players or something like that. But I don't know what impact he had on revenue for Fender. I think even like his You'll Never Remember, I'll Never Forget video, it was kind of annoying over the top where, the ticket's on his car and he crumples it up and throws it away. And I just thought, that's just a little bit too much. Those are the little things. But, he obviously has said some things. It's kind of over the top. Kind of, I guess, rock and rollers over the years have done that. I mean, I don't really hear Jake knocking Richie Blackmore. Have you heard some of the things that have that came out of his mouth? You remember Dave Meniketti for Y&T? Loved me some Y&T back in the day. They used to have, I believe it was Guitar World magazine or one of the monthly publications. They had a section where they would take kind of a metal guitar player and they would play him some tracks and he would rate them. And no ego there. And I guess, Jake is innocent of an ego, and Yngwie is the only one who has one. But Dave Meniketti, when they played him Lay It Down, Warren DeMartini solo, he says, this is really nice. This is very tasty. He goes, it sounds like something that I would do. A lot of humility there. And just on a side note, do you remember Cream magazine? Gee whiz, the photo comments and little subtitles were brutal. They had a picture of Y&T. It looked like they were at sound check standing in front of the drum riser. My brother says that it said something else. We talked about this a couple of months ago, but I believe it said something like, you don't have to be fat to be ugly, but it helps. Anyway, so, I can't necessarily say that Jake is wrong for sure about Yngwie being arrogant, but sometimes we have to be careful because we don't want to be guilty of throwing rocks in a glass house. For instance, I believe Jake said this about Motley Crue and Mick Mars. Now, I would not consider that perhaps maybe the most humble statement that I've ever read or observed, but hey, I guess it's okay to throw rocks at other people. Whatever. Let's move on.
And he was a, great guitar player. But even then, he was really good at one little thing that he does, doing the sweeps and arpeggios and playing fast. And that's all he could do. That's one of my problems with him. It's a very narrow band of guitar playing.
All right. Well, boy, that was awesome. I think the phrase fish in a barrel comes to mind here. Let's just be honest. Yngwie Malmsteen redefined the guitar. I think as far as like the big players, when you look at the history of rock guitar, you may want to go back to Chuck Berry or something like that, but less, more / whatever modern-esque era. I think you have to start with Hendrix. I mean, Hendrix just was a freak of nature. What he did tone-wise, showmanship-wise, note selection was just a master. And I think people were listening to what's his name, Clapton, Slowhand, and even Page. Page, definitely another massive influencer as far as guitar goes. But I think Hendrix was really one of the big ones. And then after that, you had Van Halen. When Eddie Van Halen came out and he starts doing this tapping, and it wasn't just his tapping, it was his tone, it was his vibrato, it was that fluidity that he had in his left hand, and that right hand picking technique was just absolutely amazing. And it redefined how rock guitar players approached guitar. So Hendrix did that, Van Halen did that, we might say Page did that, Jeff Beck. I mean, sometimes you listen to Beck, you have no idea what he's doing. But then you kind of, Randy Rhoads had a bit of an input there, but you weren't necessarily scratching your head saying, what is he doing? I just don't have any clue what he's doing. But then Malmsteen came out, and it was like another Eddie Van Halen impact moment, to where you were like, what is he doing? How is he doing it? What are these, you're listening to arpeggios at that point, and if you were like me, you didn't really know what he was doing, and it took a while to figure it out, or maybe you knew a friend who had a better ear or something, and they showed you what was going on there. So I just found that amazing. I thought he was a very high-impact player. Jakey Lee, great player. Love him. His leads are so melodic. His note selection is just fantastic. But folks, he didn't redefine guitar. As a matter of fact, if you listen to some of the songs that he's written, it's rehash. It sounds like Rock Candy. It sounds like Suicide Solution. It sounds like this, that, and the other. And I know I need to listen to this, that, and the other, and we'll get to that here in just a bit. But, he's primarily a blues player. And Yngwie can play classical guitar. He infuses metal with a classical influence. His vibrato is impeccable. It's off of the charts. He has a tremendous blues sense, even though it's fast as all get out and rips your face off. He has a complete command over blues. And people say, well, he doesn't play with any fire. He doesn't play with any feel. Well, I just guess you're just not listening. I remember one guy I was recording, had a little studio, and he's like, well, there's just not a lot of feel there. He doesn't play with any emotion. And I wanted to say, could you tell me what song? Or let's make it easier. What album is it in particular that he's not playing with any feel on? And of course, he wouldn't have been able to answer because he doesn't even listen to him. So it's ridiculous. And then on top of that, I mean, he did kind of, composed that whole symphony, that concerto, the Millennium Suite in E minor, which is really E flat minor. he composed every note in that, whether it was the viola, the upright bass, the cello, clarinet, whatever it was. And he told that Rosenthal guy, and whatever his name was, a keyboard player, he said, this is what I want that instrument to play, and compose the whole thing. And he even had like a 40-person choir, and I believe maybe his mom was in it or whatever. So I'm sorry, Jake, but that's a little bit more than one thing. And as far as his body of work, I think let's just look at the albums alone that he's been a part of. It doesn't even include about the 20 DVDs that he's put out. Nice. Now, to be fair, let's look at the body of work that Jake has put out. Oh, is that section already over? That Jake thing went by pretty quick. I'm sorry. Now I'm getting obnoxious. Anyway, I think that it's understated to say that he only did one thing. Even contemporary players like George Lynch, all of them, Paul Gilbert, obviously a big fan, student of Yngwie. George Lynch was starting to incorporate some of Malmsteen's style into his stuff with Doc. And I saw Yngwie warm up AC/DC back in like 85, and Angus Young came out and did this guitar solo, and it was like he was trying to play like Yngwie, and it was extremely embarrassing. Vivian Campbell was upset that Yngwie came out and stole a lot of his thunder. He says, I don't give a flying whatever if I can play as fast as Yngwie Malmsteen. Well, it sure seemed like he was certainly trying when I saw him a couple of times. But anyway, people now are even influenced by Yngwie that haven't even listened to him because he's been around so long and he's influenced the players that they're listening to. So again, I'm an apologist for Yngwie. That doesn't, if you don't know, I'm sure you do, that doesn't mean that I'm saying I'm sorry or we're sorry. An apologist is someone who makes a defense of something. So that's what we're doing. Let's move on.
He's a shit player. He can't write a song worth of
Here's a great song that Jake wrote. It's called Speed Bag. That goes on for about 11 seconds. Tell you what, I'm going to do a separate video. It's kind of an instructional video on the opening sequence of the first 11 seconds of Speed Bag, and it's pretty articulate. Want me to play that slow? We get the point. I know. I need to listen to Badlands. 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 I have listened to Badlands. Time and time again, I forced myself to listen to it. For me, if you love it, that's great. If that's the plumb line for guitar for you, that's wonderful. For me, it just sounds like Whitesnake. It sounds like Zeppelin. It sounds like Montrose. I hear Rock Candy. I hear Ramble On. I hear some other Zeppelin stuff. I just hear very generic A, C, D type chord progressions. And I guess it's supposed to be great. It never did a thing for me. I would rather listen to Visual Lies by Lizzie Borden. I would rather listen to something else. I'd rather listen to a Dawkins album, an early Dawkins album. I'd certainly rather listen to some Malmsteen. But again, if you like Badlands, that's great. Doesn't do a thing for me. The leads are fantastic, very melodic, very Jake-esque. That's great. I just find it to be a little generic. All right, and we're going to kind of finish this up with this. And I'm not even going to play the clip because it's going to just require a lot of work. I believe Jake took some shots at the physical appearance of Yngwie and said that he was fat. He did blow up there for a while, didn't he? I guess if you get older, we all do. As a 55-year-old, I really don't want to walk in public with my shirt off, and that's, the dairy farmers start running after me. But anyway, I just can't, But yeah, he blew up. I blew up back in the 90s. Right now I'm 6'1", 185, 186. Back in the 90s, I was 245 pounds. You talk about a beached whale. And, I guess you got ugly Mick Mars, fat Yngwie, and Pretty Boy Jake. Please like and subscribe. Perhaps you'll unsubscribe. Feel free to make a comment, leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Go easy on me. I'm a child of divorce. Keep rocking on.